Good morning, this is Jack from Charting the Markets, and this is the pre-market webinar for the morning of Friday, the 6th of March. My disclaimer, I do this for educational purposes only. I'm here to share my technical analysis with you. I hope you can take some of what I'm doing and learn from it, transfer it to your own charts, and I'm not here to issue trading signals. Oh, by the way, Doug, I'm implementing the suggestion you made about tossing in interesting charts at the end of the day. I did the first one yesterday. All right, great. Okay, yes, we just had an awful NFP number. I understand it was minus 92K. Obviously, the market reaction was negative, and we're getting back into the retest of these lows. As I was saying, this is actually, we've got a double bottom top that's already broken down with the target in the 65.8226 area, and obviously, there's a larger head and shoulders I was also talking about. This was it breaking down, and if we go down below it here, that's got a target even lower. This is interesting stuff, and I'm thinking we might be at the start of a sizable decline. Week 6 minutes buy signal has it's reached the possible near miss target. When it reaches 30 and closes on it or below it, which I think it's probably going to in 12 minutes, then I write that off, so no current signal. NQ, the 6 minute sell signal is reaching the possible near miss target. It hasn't made it back to the lows yet, but obviously that would be next. RTY has made it back to the lows earlier this week. It's gone lower. I did mention there's a potential lower bottom set up here, but that's assuming that it stops. YM, the same, and that is continuing down. Possible 6 minute buy signal brewing, but we may well lose that divergence. On DAX, retest of the low, possible double bottom setup. ESTX, retest the low, possible double bottom setup. But my lean is we're probably going to continue down here. I'm not really seeing much in the way of positive divergence suggesting otherwise. We've still got a weak 6 minute buy signal fixed here, but it's reached the possible near miss target on Nikkei. I'm leaning towards this going down too. One reason we were seeing such a strong reaction on Nikkei to the Iran conflict is, of course, they import all their fuel, liquid natural gas, and oil, and that is, and obviously that had a big impact in Japan and South Korea, because obviously they're very concerned about the security of their supply. And China is negotiating separately with Iran at the moment to see if they can get their tankers through, which could ease things a bit, but not enough probably. We shall see. All right, let's have a look at the bigger picture charts, and looking at SPX, obviously we have held resistance at the daily middle band. We're heading back to the lower band. We're still not expanding a great deal on the daily bands here. So if we get back to this low here, we'll probably be punching below the 3SD lower band again. Unless it's a really strong move, that tends to be pretty good support. So I'll be watching that with interest. No divergence on the hourly chart. Obviously, this is the head and shoulders that I was talking about that's broken down. And if we're going to go lower today, which it looks like we might well, then I've got a target for that in the 65.40 area, which is a long way down. We've also got a potential asymmetric double top support at this trend line here. Or possible head and shoulder neckline. If that forms, then that could take us further down, as I was talking about in the post yesterday, I think, down into the 6150, 6200 area. All right, looking at the 15-minute chart, no divergence worth the mention. We had a little buy signal on the RSI 5, that made target, so nothing further. Qs, we actually held the daily middle band as support yesterday, I think. Yes, marginally, but it looks like it's going to lose it today. Practical resistance looks like the 50-day MA at the moment. We didn't quite reach that on this move. On the hourly chart, no current divergence. We do have, of course, a pretty decent-looking double top here. Not ideal, but pretty close to ideal here. And if we make tracks and break down below this level here and in the 580 area, then that could set us off to go down to about the 523, 524 area. I'm thinking that might happen. I think we're just seeing the start of what might happen here, and it could be, I mean, if the Treasury moves is closed, then we could see oil back up over 100, possibly, as I said, it could be a bull flag, in which case we could see a retest of 126. That's an oil shock. That really is an oil shock. That could cause carnage across the markets, and we may be seeing the start of that now. Dire, No current positive divergence. There was an opportunity there, but no current positive divergence on the daily RSI 5. Again, I mean, we've got the bands are expanding more here, but nonetheless, we tested the lower band, the 3SD lower band yesterday. So it is looking like a lower band right here, though, and watching that with interest. We could see that across the board. Looking at Dia, you develop across the board. On Dia, no current divergence. On the hourly chart, nothing worth the mention on the 15-minute chart either. All right, let's have a look at the bigger picture charts on IWM. And IWM, we touched again the 3SD lower band yesterday. Theoretically, that might limit downside, but depends whether we see a really strong move, in which case all bets are off. This is still looking like a pretty nice looking bull flag, but as I was noting in my post yesterday, this could break down and give us a target which would be down about the 235 area, I think. On the hourly chart, no divergence. We've still got an RSI 14 sell signal fixed on the daily chart, although that's not really a pattern I'd watch an awful lot. In terms of the 15-minute chart, no current divergence. So there's nothing, only the 3SD lower bands really on the dailies are limiting the downside, but that's quite a good limit generally. So watching that with interest. All right, DAX, still kicking around near the lows, and Nikkei. Nikkei, we saw a decent rally yesterday, went back up and tested the daily middle band, but if we're having basically big spikes in oil prices here, that's going to have a big impact on economies which import all of their energy. And Japan is pretty much one of those. It's got some nuclear, and I would have thought it's probably got some solar as well. So, but they import an awful lot of theirs, and it's going to have an impact on their economy for sure. So we will see. I'm thinking we may be at the early stages of a pretty significant oil shock. All right, DAX. DX. DX, we've got a 60-minute sell signal fixed. Hasn't really delivered anything, but I am leaning towards seeing a retest of this high, and then possibly a move down after that, or it may just continue up. So far, in this shock, we're seeing dollar go up and bonds go down. Dollar and oil go up and bonds and equities go down. Looking at the other currencies, USD pretty close to retest the low, GBP pretty close to a retest of the low, USD JPY has already retested the high, but this tends to follow its own track to a degree. I'm not really seeing a lot on USD CAD or Australian dollar or NZ, although for the dollar index, Australia and NZ, I'm not sure. I don't think either of them is included anyway. All right, looking at ZB. ZB, we've got a nice looking. We're seeing a bit of a spike here. I think that might be because the job numbers were so awful that people are thinking that it's we may well see a cut in interest rates, and that could be right. So watching that with interest, but we've got a very nice looking head and shoulders that's broken down with the target in the 113.27 area. I'm watching with interest to see whether that makes that target. ZN, we have broken down from a head and shoulders with the target in the 111.06 area. So not seeing anything particularly to suggest that won't make target, but if we do start seeing interest rate cuts to support the economy, that could have obviously a significant impact. CL has broken up. We're now at 87.65. We've seen a hard break over the 78.40 double bottom resistance, and the target for that is in the 100, basically to 100 to 102 area. If that is a bull flag that we've broken up from, then that would have a target at a retest of 126. And that would be a big shock to the economy. Looking at HO, heading higher, the IHS on HO has actually already made the target, which was pretty quick work. RBOB has broken up too, and making higher highs. 6-minute sell signal fixed, but obviously hasn't delivered anything so far and may not. NG obviously is also, we don't have the amazing bullish setups on NG that we've got on the oils, but nonetheless, I think 20% of LNG goes through, and of course Japan will be a serious buyer of that. As 25% of LNG, I think, goes through Strait of Hormuz, and at the moment that is closed. So I'm watching this IHS with interest. I'm thinking this may well deliver on a sustained break over 3.19. That would have a target in approximately the 361 area. So we could see that head back up to here, and I'm thinking that may well be on the table. This is a pretty nice looking inverted head and shoulders forming, and it's getting pretty close to breaking up. Looking at GC, kicking around, not doing a great deal. 60-minute buy signal to deliver anything. This still looks like a bear flag on silver. It still looks like a bear flag on palladium. It still looks like a bear flag on platinum. And HG is getting pretty close back to triangle sport. Now, what I was saying when we were back here was that the flag was basically, I think, A, B, C, D, and then I was talking about a partial wave E that might find resistance in monthly pivot, which it did, and then it would break down, which is pretty close to doing, and then in probably the least dramatic part of the process, it would go the short distance to retest this low here in about the 5.62 area. I think we're pretty close to delivering that at the moment. It hasn't broken down yet, but the obvious next step is to break down and make that target. All right, looking at KC. KC, we've broken up from a double bottom with a target in the 308 area, the buy signal made target. SB, we have the initial double bottom, IHS broke up and failed. I did mention yesterday, and I've drawn in the lines for it now, that we had a potential alternate IHS that could be forming here, and waiting to see. I'm not that optimistic about sugar doing much damage to the upside, but it is a possibility, so I drew it in. All right, looking at CC. CC could see a bit of a rally, barely moved the needle so far. Although, to be honest, there is a question of scale here. Between this point and this point, CC obviously more than halved. So if it's slowing down to a slightly more moderate speed, then that's not that surprising. So far, this looks like a bear flag forming. CT, we made the head and shoulder target at 63.65. We've now got a potential double bottom here, which I'm watching. So that could deliver something. Lumber broke up as expected. Didn't really have a pattern to give us a target for that breakup. Could be forming a larger pattern, but the 60-minute buy signal has reached possible near miss target, and the bigger picture, I think, is bearish. ZW is going back up and retesting this high here. Possible double top here, but at the moment there's not much sign of this turning around. Corn has gone higher, and this no longer looks like a bear flag. So I think this is probably heading back up into a retest this high here at 465, and we see where it goes from there. Grains basically have a fire lit under them at the moment. On ZS, we've got higher highs as well. ZL, higher highs. Live cattle, I am wondering if this retracement might be done, although it hasn't been particularly large. We could be forming a topping pattern, but if so, it's not particularly clear what it is. HE have gone higher. Now, what I'm thinking is we've finished the retracement, we're heading back up to the retest this high here at 99.75, or this is A, B, C, and we'd be looking for a target somewhere in the 87.5 to 88 area, and then probably higher because we'd be forming a likely bull flag. All right, great. Let's have a quick look at questions. All right, everyone, take care. Have a great weekend. And I'm spring cleaning, so I'll be having a sweaty weekend, I would have thought. So everyone, take care, and I'll see you on the other side. All right, cheers.